If you're not willing to acknowledge the dark parts within yourself, you're denying your own freedom. Join me and Emile Steenveld for a powerful conversation where we share what really takes place behind the curtains of social media. In this episode, you'll learn how your need for approval is influencing your leadership, the importance of always working on your craft, how to build your movement on a solid foundation, and why you need to take full responsibility for how you show up. Emile has been coaching individuals for close to a decade now on how to break down inherent beliefs and old habits that sabotage growth and profitable results. Emile was a highly successful fashion model who was featured in brands such as Hugo Boss, Versace, Nike, Calvin Klein, Apple, and more, and now teaches thousands of his students on how to enroll people in who you are through confidence and storytelling. His strategies and tools in emotional intelligence, self-transformation, mindfulness, timeline therapy, and acceptance and commitment therapy have helped thousands worldwide. Emile has influenced the masses through his momentum programs, elevate events, fear to flow programs, and has supported individuals and corporate CEOs on their path to greatness. Now, this is one of my favorite episodes to date because the conversation is that good. So get ready because we're about to drop some amazing truth bombs. Now, whether you're new to this podcast or you're a loyal thought leader, please make sure you take a moment to download a few episodes and drop a rating and review on iTunes. And if you want to stay in the loop for future episodes, please sign up for my email list at rubyfremon.com/subscribe. Now it is time to pull back the curtains of social media and get real with Emile Steenveld. Hey, thought leaders, I am back with another very, very special guest. Someone who I like to refer to as the Jedi or Yoda of the personal development world, because he does these amazing Jedi mind tricks, and quite often you can spot him in a room looking like Yoda, just peering at people as he's trying to Jedi them into having a transformation. So with that being said, welcome to the show, Emile. I am so stoked to have you here. It's been a few months since we connected in person, so welcome.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for that Jedi intro.
I'm pretty sure there was also a picture from the event where you were looking super Yoda-esque. That was circular.
Yes, you did actually capture that and put it in. So I appreciate it.
So, thought leaders, Emile is one of the creators of Elevate, which is the event that I had the amazing opportunity to speak at earlier this year in April, and they're doing it again in September. So if you're in Bali or
October.
I keep saying September. It's in October. So if you're in Bali or in the vicinity of Bali or craving a last-minute trip to Bali, the link will be in the show notes. With that being said, I'm excited to see where this conversation flows because I believe that both of us have a very similar stance with the work that we do. We're not afraid to face the quote unquote dark side, and we're not afraid to take our clients to that space. So tell our audience a little bit more about that, about why you feel it's important to lead your clients through these spaces that maybe perhaps they've been resisting. Because at the event, I got to witness you in person, and you really take them there to those places that perhaps they've refused to go themselves.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You saw on stage when we actually get to be in the space with them, and a lot of coaches or a lot of speakers don't want to be in that space because they don't know what's going to come up.
Right.
And this is the thing about uncertainty, is when you're on stage, you're kind of forced into being 100% present with that person. And this is the biggest biggest problem that we have these days is that we don't want to be present with what's coming up for us. We try to avoid it. We try to hide from it. We try to pretend it's not there. And we do it, you've heard it out a million times. We do it through sex, alcohol, drugs, Netflix, social media, anything you can find to distract you from actually dealing with what's actually appearing. We don't want to feel it. And it's interesting. I was talking to a girl yesterday who applied for our event, and I asked her why she applied, and she just said to me, I've been through depression, I've had anxiety, I've gone through so much stuff myself, and I'm just tired of this feeling. And I've never been into self-development before, but I really I saw your video, and it actually gave me anxiety, she said, but I don't know what else to do. And I said, it sounds like you're tired of running. And this is the biggest issue we have these days, is that everybody's running, and it's so necessary to actually stop. And you get to a point where you're like, you can't run anymore.
Right.
And you get to the point where it's like, I am so tired of thinking about this thing that has been in the back of my mind, and it keeps taking energy from my present, and that's ruling my life. And this is why I love to go there and allow them to go there in a safe way, because once they allow themselves to breathe through that and allow themselves to experience these thoughts, feelings, and emotions, they're able to actually just see it for what it is, instead of the big story that they've made it mean their whole lives.
Right.
And
Because that's all we're doing, right? We're creating these stories out of our perception of what's actually happening. And then we continue to seek evidence to prove that story right, which then in turn just makes the story grow bigger and bigger and bigger until we feel like that is actually our reality. And I loved what you said about the running, because I always look at it in that we have two choices. Like, we can run away from something, or we can run towards something. And people think that by running away from something, they're running towards something, but they're actually not clear in regards to what they're running towards.
There's no clarity around it. In fact, it's what they're doing is they're building a life where they can avoid it in different situations. So it's like, if I act this way, then certain people won't respond to me in this way again. Right? So it's like, let me build all these mechanics and all these systems and keep inside the box, so that no one can actually see me for who I am, because that could hurt.
Yeah. Let me build all these protection mechanisms to avoid actually being seen, being heard, being experienced. Because at the end of the day, one of the deepest needs that we all share is that need to feel like we belong. And personally, living in the era of social media and having not grown up with that, and now being full on in it, social media amplifies all of that, right? The fear of judgment, the fear of not being accepted, the fear of being hated, the fear of being unfollowed. God forbid someone unfollow me today, right? God forbid someone not like my shit.
It's so funny. Did you unfollow me?
Yeah.
Are we okay? It's like
yeah, like people looking at their unsubscribes, and it's like, this is what everyone's getting wrapped up in, because of this innate need to feel like we belong somewhere, to feel like we are loved. Would you say that that's one of the biggest reasons why we create these mechanics and these protection mechanisms?
I mean, we do it because ultimately everybody wants to be seen, heard, and approved of. And we try and do it by being inauthentic, because we don't actually allow ourselves to be with ourselves. We're not allowing ourselves to actually accept part of ourselves. And you said earlier, in the dark side, like going to the dark side, it's like, I want to be loved, so I'm only going to show the good parts of me, and I'll stuff down all the shit that I don't like about myself. Right. And I'll hide it and avoid it, and nobody can see that part, because if they see that part, they may reject me, and if they reject me, then I'm going to be alone. But ultimately, you're going to be alone every time you reject yourself. You may be in a room and you may be around all these people, and it may look all great, and it does. It looks great on Instagram, and you're traveling around the world and you're doing all these things, but you're deep down, you're unfulfilled, you're not connected. And this is why people keep getting bullshitted, because when they look on Instagram and they do the comparison, they look on it and they go, oh my God, that person has an amazing life. You have no idea what that person's life is like.
Right.
Because that person is consistently thinking about the next post that's going to feed them and give them that approval again, and give them the likes and give them the shares and tell them that they're beautiful, but they're not doing it for themselves. And it's such a fucked up cycle.
It really is. It's like this constant feeding the approval machine. And in that, for, the purpose-driven leaders who are our listeners today, for you to continue feeding that machine, to feed that cog of like just seeking approval, just seeking the likes, what happened to your cause? What happened to your mission? What happened to the purpose, your why, the why behind what you're doing? I mean, I feel like that all of that becomes diluted once we begin to just do things for approval.
Yeah. It's funny you say this, because I noticed it. I'm really bad with social media.
Yeah, he literally, FYI, Emile just literally hit 10K recently, and I was so excited for you, because I was like, it's about damn time the guy hits 10K. Finally, swipe ups.
Yeah,
is a real
the
thing.
swipe ups. I was like, damn, my life changed. I was like, I was requesting lattes from places, and I was like, yo, give me this muffin. I got 10K. I can swipe up. Anyways. It was funny because I never really would post, and I was inconsistent. And I had this love-hate relationship with it. And what's interesting now is that now I've decided to be more consistent with it. And even after the event, something shifted for me at the event. And I realized, the impact I can have on people on stage. And I didn't really get that I could have that much impact until that event. Actually, it was really interesting for me, because I was like, yeah, I know I can coach, and I know I can speak and stuff, but I didn't realize I was having that kind of impact. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start being more consistent. I'm going to start putting myself out there more. I'm going to start doing more videos. And after I started doing that, I noticed that a lot of people engage with my stuff, even though I don't have that many followers. Like, I have 11,000 followers, and the engagement I get is quite a lot, and I get a lot of DMs. And then I noticed myself going, wow, it's really impacting quite a bit of people. But then I also noticed my mind going, ooh, what am I going to post tomorrow? And I started getting caught in it. And what I noticed myself was like, oh, this is really interesting to watch. To see myself thinking about what I need to post next, which I never would do. I'd just post when I wanted. I would have a month break and then come back and be like, really I'm back. Yeah, I'm back. Hey. And what I started to notice is that it's so easily and so subtle that you get pulled in. And even though you're there to support and help, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm sure you are the same thing, you can easily get caught into that trap and get pulled into that idea of like, oh my God, I need to put out more content. And it does, you get feedback. And it's an instant thing. And I had to remind myself, I'm like, okay, cool. Who am I doing this for? And I had to consistently remind myself, who am I doing this for?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask. Who am I doing this for? Because it's the instant gratification.
Yeah.
Is pretty much feeding an addiction. Right? It's a dopamine hit.
It is.
It's like ping, like ping, like ping. Oh, this feels good. And you get addicted to it, whether you're conscious of it or not. And yes, I'm the same. Like, I can get caught up in that too. And just to remind myself of, okay, alignment is key for me. Staying in integrity is key for me. Being congruent is key for me. And really delivering potency versus watered down vanilla bullshit just to appease the masses and just to hit my quota of like 2 posts a day, And I always say, like, consistency is great for the algorithm. It's just the way that these platforms are built, but potency is great for loyalty. And the potency of your message gets diluted when you get wrapped up in the what do I need to post to get the most engagement? What do I need to post to get the most likes? Oh, this person's posting this and it works for them. Let me do this too. It's so interesting. It's like a mind fuck, and we have to constantly get ourselves out of it and remind ourselves of why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Social media is a gift, and it's also not a gift. I don't want to say a curse, but it's a crutch. It's a crutch and it's a gift. And I've met a lot of other leaders who have the same love-hate relationship with it as you do. So like, how have you been navigating that now, since you are intentionally and consciously putting yourself out there more?
I think for me, I've just hired a content creation manager. So that's supporting me as well, because we're getting structured with it. And I also set a timer on it. So I'm like 45 minutes a day max. And it's about setting structures up so I can use it instead of it using me. Right. My whole purpose is not to always think about, like, I live in Bali, you know, I teach mindfulness. I'm like, how mindful am I being if I'm constantly scrolling? And it can be days where I'm like, I actually wrote it on my board. I was like, what are my distractions? I'm like, social media. And for me, like, especially leading up to our events and getting stuff that I need to do, if it's constantly pulling me out of what I'm doing, then it's not working for me. Right? It's like, what do we do? Are we posting social media so we can get more people engaged in what we're doing? But then it's taking me away from what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, so what's the point?
Right. It's really interesting, because that's what happens is people get caught up in the social media and the digital marketing and all of that, and then they lose sight of what they're actually doing. You know, I had one of my mentors. Have you heard of Rich Litvin, the prosperous coach?
I
love him. He said once at one of his events, if you're a coach and you're spending more time on social media than you are coaching, you're a social media marketer. And like everybody in the room went silent, because everyone just started mentally auditing like the time that they're spending. Right. And so it is about that. And I love that you have boundaries with your social media. I also have really strong boundaries. I actually have a major hate relationship with Facebook right now. Facebook and I are on a break, and it may look like I'm on there all the time, but I have someone who manages my social media as well. I create the content, so it comes from my heart, but someone else manages it. I only go in to check in on my clients, to check in on my groups, and then I'm out. And this has radically helped me get aligned with my vision and my purpose, because one of the things that I've experienced since the very beginning of doing this business 5 years ago now is that I've built it completely different than from what other people are saying. And I feel like you've done the exact same thing. Like, I don't have a good lead magnet or opt-in, and I still only have maybe just under 2,000 subscribers on my email list. And I've had it for 5 years. Like there's just so many different aspects of my business that business strategists would look at and say, Ruby, you're doing it wrong. And then I look at and then I look at the impact that I'm facilitating, and I look at the people that I get to work with, and I'm like, I don't think I'm doing it wrong. I believe that I'm doing it right. And I believe that I'm doing it in a way that really aligns with me. And I know that you've done this too. I mean, you just shared, like, you're just starting to have a social media presence. You've just been this like Jedi in the background behind the scenes living in Bali doing his thing. And like, now you're coming to the service.
I mean, it's funny because I was always working on my craft. When I first wanted to be a coach, I wanted to be a coach because I had so much shit going on for me in the background. This story of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, or I'm not smart enough. And so when I first started coaching, I didn't even understand what branding was or marketing or know that you needed that in order to put it out there more to hit the masses. I was just like, no, work at your craft, you learn. And from there, I just started running workshops and coaching. And I used to be a yoga teacher as well. So I would combine that and do different modalities and see what worked and what didn't. And I think it really is these days. I have this saying, and you can look at this, right? You go to the gym, you see these guys at the gym that are huge, muscly dudes, right? And they're big. They're like big puffy clouds, right? And no offense, no offense if you're listening to this and you're a puffy cloud, but what I want you to understand is that you got guys that like that will go to the gym and consistently work out, and they just do the big things and lift heavy weights in really short bursts, and they're big, but they're not solid. They don't have a solid foundation. So the moment they do themselves an injury, boom, one thing falls out of place and everything falls out of whack because there's no strong core. And then you got people that will build from the core up. And these dudes that are like literally can do muscle ups, do 100 push-ups, can do these explosive movements, and they work on the craft, they work on the core. There's two types of people out there that will go big and great and look at me, and there's people that will be like master and core and go to the deeper part. They build their house and it's strong and it's solid, and then they build the muscle on top, and you can see they're strong, but they don't need to exude this look at me. Right. And I think this is what it is with the coaching industry these days, is that everybody's trying to go out there and make noise and say, look at me, I got my life together, and it looks amazing, but it's not real. It's and I think you tagged us on something today about literally about that
today.
Yeah, about coaches not walking the talk in the background and getting on stage, and it's like, oh sweet, rah rah rah, look at me, I'm gonna give you the best speech ever. But then I go back and I'm bullshitting myself.
Yeah.
And I think what I did, I really focused on mastering craft, practicing it. And that was the key word, practicing it, implementing it, doing it again. And this is why I'm able to be with people on stage, because I know exactly what they're going through in that moment.
Yeah. That's the missing piece, is practice and implementation. Like we hear, sharpen your tools, and we hear the word mastery a lot. And then the word expert and guru and all that stuff is thrown around in the leadership space for sure. And yet not enough people are actually being it. Not enough people are actually embodying it. Not enough people are actually living it. And let's be honest, mastery is not an end goal. It's a journey. It's not like you're sitting here saying, I'm now a master at this, and I don't need to learn anything else.
I'm now Yoda.
Right. Well, you kind of are, but but mastery is a journey, and it's one that as leaders, as conscious leaders, we must be devoted to. Because if we're not devoted to our craft, if we're not devoted to our growth and our evolution and our expansion, then who the fuck are we to encourage other people to do this?
Yeah.
Right? Like we might as well put ourselves in the client chair.
Yeah.
And coach us first.
It's crazy, because once you think you know it, you miss the point again. Once you think you've got it, I got this now. It's going to hit you again. And it's a funny thing, because I say before, it's like your knowledge rises and so does your ego, and it gets sneakier, and it finds new ways to fuck with you, and you're like, oh shit, it came from the side this time, and you're like, I wasn't expecting that, but you're like, okay, it just had to bring you down and ground you again. And this is the thing a lot with the spiritual coaching element, is that a lot of these coaches, we will change someone's lives and go, I changed that person's life, and this is where the knowledge, cool, I learned these tricks and stuff I've never learned before, and now I'm doing it with people, and then I get this feeling and this rush, and that's that instant gratification of, oh my god, this is amazing, I must be amazing, because I never said that to myself. And then I take that and I think that that's my new belief, but then it pulls me up here, and I get pulled up into this spiritual the spiritual ego,
right,
which is even worse than a normal ego, by the way.
Yeah.
Because it's like harder to let go of, because it smashes you even in every type of different angle. And then if you get caught into it, then guess what's going to happen? You're literally going to try and fight for it and keep it. And this is where it gets ugly.
Yeah. Fighting for our limitations, fighting for the spiritual ego that is actually essentially trying to hold us back from growing and expanding any more than we are. And like I always I pride myself on failing every day. Like I fail every day. I fuck up every day. Like I make mistakes every day, and I choose to learn from them. And that is the journey, and it's one that takes, I believe, courage and bravery. But once you start to flex those muscles, you get used to flexing those muscles every day to show up in a courageous way, to be brave enough to take action despite what your ego is saying, or despite what your limitations are saying, or despite what your fear is telling you to do. And it's just that constant and consistent action taking against what perhaps your mind is even saying. And that is what makes us more impactful leaders and coaches, is to constantly push our own edges and to go there before we take our clients there. Like I always say, I'm going to walk through the fire first. I'm going to crawl through the mud first. And then I can support you in going through it, but not until I go through it first. Not until I walk through that fire. Yeah.
And how much more real is it when you're able to go, you know what? I experienced this before as well.
Yeah.
And I know exactly how you feel. How much quicker can you connect with a client or a person you're speaking to versus, oh no, my life looks fucking amazing.
Right.
But I understand what you're saying to some extent. You don't. Mm-hmm. You can't connect. And this is why vulnerability trumps perfection any day. Mm-hmm. Because when we can really be real with ourselves and roar and be like, yo, I fucked up. And this is what I learned from it.
Yeah.
Like, those are the best lessons. I'm always looking for content. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be a great story. It's going to be a great lesson one day.
Yeah. After we go through it. And it's that humbling humility that creates that connection with people, because it shows them the humanness. Yeah. And I think that's what's lacking in the online space, is the human factor. We just see a lot of robotics going on and a lot of projections going on and facades, and people really showcasing only what they want to showcase. And then you meet them in person and there's a lack of congruency. And it's our stories that keep us connected to each other.
Absolutely.
That's what keeps us connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to, as leaders, be brave enough to do that work on ourselves day in and day out, to share from that space of storytelling versus making shit up and renting Lamborghinis and taking pictures in front of them with your wads of paper. I didn't even know this was a thing, that you could rent cars and airplanes for photo shoots.
Well, I saw it on a documentary where girls were, and probably guys too, were getting pictures in the hired airplane for their social media.
Right.
And this is the world's coming to. Yeah. Is that we are creating these illusions and calling it life and pretending. Right. And this is what I was saying, is it's becoming more and more disconnected. Yeah. And it's doing your online community such a disservice, because you're portraying something that actually isn't real. And so they're aspiring to something that isn't reality. And your online, like, I hate saying followers, I prefer a community. And your community, every single one of those people in those numbers, like for you, the 11,000 people, every single one of those people opted in. They made a choice, a conscious choice to follow you. And so they deserve to actually have an opportunity to connect with you. And you get to do that. Yeah. Right? It's a privilege.
Get to connect.
It's an actual
really
privilege.
Is. Yeah.
Whether it's 500 people, 200 people, it's a privilege. And this is the thing that also got me, Ruby, was in my head, I was like, okay, I got to post, I got to do this, I got to do that. In my head, I was like, okay, if I can affect one person, then that's enough. Yeah. And I had to consistently remind myself, if it's just one person that goes, you know what, that really supported me, then that's enough. Yeah. I mean, imagine being in a room with one person and you impacted them. That's powerful. Yeah. People complain about, oh, only got 5 likes or only got like 10 likes. It's like, if you had those people in a room with you, in front of you, right there, and they were impacted by what you just shared,
Is that not a powerful moment?
Mm.
But social media skews the optics of everything.
Yeah. And it's built for it. I mean,
right.
that's how they run the business. And this is why we need to question it. We need to question everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, question everything you read. Is this truth? Does this align with me?
Mm-hmm.
Just because you read it on there, it doesn't mean it's truth.
Right. Just because Emile says it doesn't mean it's truth. Just
You,
because
you,
Ruby
you,
says it
you
doesn't mean
question
it's
it.
truth.
Exactly.
Yeah, we get to
Exactly.
question everything, and we get to feel into, okay, does this feel aligned for me? And you can only ask yourself that question and give yourself an honest answer if you are committed to doing your own inner work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just gonna, and I've seen this happen so many times, you're just gonna become the people that you're following. You're just gonna emulate them.
It becomes a gap, a massive gap again. And then you're like, okay, what do my followers want? It's like, no, it's like, as a leader, it's like, well, how am I showing up for them?
Mm-hmm.
What is needed right now? Am I doing this so I can get more engagement, or am I doing this because I really want to make impact? It's like, it's always good to ask questions, but no, don't forget your values.
Yeah.
Don't stray outside your values. Don't sacrifice your values.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the thing these days with leaders out there in the world, is like, how do we make a real impact, a consistent impact, and stay fully in alignment with ourselves and not betray ourselves?
Yeah. And going back to that foundation piece that you were talking about before with the cloud men versus the the core, the foundation is the values. And so we all need to be in constant connection with that. And if editing needs to happen consistently, to edit that, but just to be in touch with that and to really be devoted to that foundation and to staying connected with that foundation, because without that foundation, everything we build is going to topple at some point.
It will, right? And you will end up unfulfilled. And this is the thing, right? Like, bring it back to you saying earlier, like, why do people run? It's like, we don't actually, when we're fully connected to everything, the dark and the light, that's when we're the most alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we're the most fulfilled. That's when we are like, when we're experiencing everything, anger, sadness, happiness, like, you can't deny one feeling and then expect to experience another feeling.
Right.
And it's crazy. For, I was saying, for 10 years, I mean, I told you I was a model, and I did that job and I did it to my best. But in the end, I realized what I was seeking was acceptance and approval from the outside world. And when I got it, I realized I didn't need it. But I had to go through it in order to come out of it.
Right.
So that was my experience, and I don't regret it. I actually learned so much about myself to go from going through that experience. And throughout that, I was realized that I had to go through that in order to understand that that wasn't it. And I got me. So it's like, every experience you're going through is teaching you something. Every single thing, like, nothing is a waste. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking it's, oh, I went through this experience with this partner and it wasn't the right partner and a waste of my time, then you're missing the point.
Yeah.
Because you got to ask yourself, what is the lessons that I got through that? What did I actually learn about myself? And how am I going to take this into the next part of my life? You know, it's,
the dots always connect, always. And even if you can't see it right now because something feels a little too fresh, a little too ripe, it will connect later on. You will see how every single experience in your life has led you to where you are today. And I love what you said about being connected to the dark and the light, because in the spiritual, online spiritual community, there's a lot of love and light. Let's just throw light at it. I'm heading towards the light. I just want high vibes. And it's like, and you're missing the point. So basically, you're going to bypass the full spectrum of what you're capable of feeling and experiencing to just be in, quote unquote, the light. We wouldn't know happiness without sadness. No, we wouldn't know joy without despair. We wouldn't know freedom without repression. Like, we wouldn't know. And we are built with the ability to experience all of these emotions, the full spectrum of it, which means we get to feel angry and experience anger in our system. We get to experience guilt. We get to experience shame. We get to experience despair, and we get to navigate through all of that while we navigate through happiness and joy and being elated. And we get to experience the full spectrum of our emotions. And yes, that is what makes us us. Denying our anger, or denying, if you're angry at an ex, or you're angry at your parents, and denying that because you're just trying to save face, or you just want to move on, or you just want to focus on the light, you're actually denying a big piece of your personal history.
You're denying your expression, and expression equals freedom.
Yes.
And so really you're denying your freedom. Your freedom to be seen, heard, and understood, and to be human. And this is the biggest thing. Like, when you think about it, it's like, if I'm denying my feelings, thoughts, and emotions, and I'm denying myself to be free, which is what we all want. Like, you think about it, when I'm able to express myself fully without caring what people think, and this is something I still go through myself, to be honest, and I probably will always go through, but I'm consistently practicing. I feel free when I'm able to speak my truth and say what I want, when I want, how I want it. I feel free. When I restrict myself, how do I feel in myself? I feel inauthentic. I don't feel connected. I don't feel heard. My voice crumbles. Like, I used to avoid confrontation like the plague. Like, I would feel like, nope.
And now you facilitate it.
now I smash them. I'm like, let's go with that. Like, oh yeah. Oh, you stop breathing? Let's go there. Like, it's, it's crazy, because when I learned that, and even why I'm an emotional intelligence coach, is I didn't know how to open up. My father was South African. He's never expressed love. He never told me he loved me until I actually approached him after doing some self-development, and I was like, why don't you love me? He's like, I do love you. And I'm like, I know you love me, but how come you never said you love me? And he's like, you know what I'm saying? He's from our parents. And I was like, I don't want to be like this with my kid. Like, I want to be connected to my kid. I want to be my kid's best friend. And in order for me to do that, I'm going to have to take full responsibility for how I show up.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to take full responsibility for what comes up for me. And I'm going to stop blaming. And the moment I did that, the moment I really built that relationship with myself, and then that mirrored back onto my father. And we have you saw him, he was at the event.
He's great.
And you wouldn't think that was the same man like 6 years ago.
Right. I hugged him every day.
Yeah. he was hugging everybody after that. He was dancing. He was on stage. Like, he loves the connection. Like, he's genuinely excited. Like, he called me yesterday, and he's like, my parents are coming to the next one, by the way.
Of course they are.
Yeah. And we're organizing one in South Africa as well, like a give back program. And he's already talking about the next one in South Africa. And I'm like, Dad, slow the down. Can I just focus on this one thing before we get to the next one? But he's genuinely excited. Now, my father 6 years ago would never express that.
Right.
He would never even be in a room that felt like that because it was uncomfortable. And it just shows that we can really transform our lives when we actually take full responsibility for us first, and our relationships with our parents. Because, like, my relationship with my family is amazing. Like, I'm so proud of the work that we've all done together, because we are fully able to express everything. Like, there's nothing on the table that hasn't been said. And I'm saying nothing. Like, I'm talking from selling drugs to sleeping with women to doing this. Nothing is off table. And that's the kind of relationship I wanted to have. I wanted to have something that was like literally nothing between us.
Yeah. And it started, and I want to emphasize this for our listeners, because I know a lot of people face family drama and trauma and family wounds, and we can only control what's controllable. Like, we can only focus on what's within our control, and that is us. And so rather than trying to change your parents or trying to get your parents to see you a certain way, or your siblings or something, you need to focus on you. on you doing that work, on you focusing on your personal development, your spiritual development, and then let that lead the way for the healing to start to take place. Because I too, like, I grew up in I'm Punjabi, Sikh, and I had a very, very different type of childhood where my parents were first generation in Canada, and they were trying to raise their kids as if they were raising them in India, because that's what they know. And so they were just doing the best that they knew how to do, right? But as a child, you're like, no, fuck this. You guys suck. I hate you. I can't tell you how many pages of my diary said I hate my dad. And now we have the most amazing relationship, but it wasn't because I was trying to fix them, which is what I was trying to do my whole adolescent life. It's because I worked on myself, and I just started showing up in that energy and in that presence. And that energy alone was enough to inspire my dad to dabble in personal development. It was enough to inspire my brother to dabble in personal development. It was enough for them to start seeing me in a different way, which meant they would treat me in a different way, which meant I treat them in a different way. And it just comes full circle.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful thing to see when you're seeing it and you're watching and you're going, wow.
Yeah.
And it started with you.
Yeah. It all starts and ends with us.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. So are you taking full responsibility for how you show up?
People are watching like, shit, I'm creating everything.
Yes, you are. Yeah. So I could keep talking forever, but we are at the end of our episode. So Emile, thank you so much for showing up, for being the Yoda that you are, for sharing your Jedi mind tricks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Why don't you tell our listeners how they can stalk you online now that you are focusing on your online presence? And I will have those links in the show notes.
Yep. So you can find me on Instagram under Emile Steenveld, or you can find me on Facebook under the same name, or you can go to my website, which is www.emilesteenveld.com.
Amazing. So listeners, I will have those links in the show notes. Emile, thank you so much. You might just see me in October. I don't know yet.
Come on.
Thank you to our listeners for joining us on another edition of Today's Thought Leader, where we are challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. If you love this episode between me and Emile, please let us know. Hit us up on the social medias. Drop us a DM. Fill us in with your biggest insights, or just say hi. That would be amazing. Yeah. And make sure you drop a rating and review on iTunes. And then if you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out and ask us questions. Emile, thank you again. And to everyone else, I will see you back here on Thursday for a brand new episode of Today's Thought Leader.